Hey everybody. Um, Thought I would pick up continuing to read Waking the Dead. And let me get my camera situated here. And there we go. And just picking up at chapter 7. And so here we go. Um, Chapter 7, Receiving God's Intimate Counsel. They dress the wound of my people as though it were not serious. God. Jeremiah 6:14. Let us beware of tinkering with our inner life. A.W. Tozer. And being very tired and having nothing inside him, he felt so sorry for himself that the tears rolled down his cheeks. What put a stop to all this was a sudden fright. Shasta discovered that someone or somebody was walking beside him. It was pitch dark, and he could see nothing. And the thing or person was going so quietly that he could hardly hear any footfalls. What he could hear was breathing. His invisible companion seemed to breathe on a very large scale. If the horse had been any good, or if it had known how to get any good out of the horse, if he had known how to get any good out of a horse, he would have risked everything on a breakaway and a wild gallop. But he knew he couldn't make that horse gallop. So he went on at a walking pace, and the unseen companion walked and breathed beside him, at least until he could bear it no longer. Oops, sorry. Who are you? He said, scarcely above a whisper. One who has waited long for you to speak, said the thing. Its voice was not loud, but very large and deep. Oh, please, please do go away. What harm have I ever done you? Oh, I am the unluckiest person in the whole world. Once more, he felt the warm breath of the thing on his hand and face. There, it said. That is not the breath of a ghost. Tell me your sorrows. Shasta was a little reassured by the breath. So he told how he had never known his real father or mother, and he had been brought up sternly by the fishermen. And then he told the story of the escape and how they were chased by lions and forced to swim for their lives, and of all the dangers in Tashbaan, and about his night among the tombs and how the beasts howled at him out of the desert. And he told about the heat and the thirst of their desert journey and how they were almost at their goal when another lion chased them and wounded Aravis. And also how very long it was since he had had anything to eat. I don't recall you unfortunate, said the large voice. I do not call you unfortunate, said the large voice. Don't you think it was bad luck to meet so many lions? said Shasta. There was only one lion, said the voice. What on earth do you mean? I've just told you there were at least two, and the first night, and there was only one. But he was so swift of foot. How do you know? I was the lion. And as Shasta gaped with his open mouth and said nothing, the voice continued. I was the lion who forced you to join with Aravis. I was the cat who who comforted you among the horses, among the houses of the dead. Sorry, it's kind of dark in here. I was the lion who drove the jackals from you while you slept. I was the lion who gave you the horses and new strength, fear, the last mile, so that you should reach King Loon in time. And I was the lion who did not remember, who pushed the boat. I was the lion you do not remember, who pushed the boat in which you lay, a child near death, so that it came to shore where a man sat, wakeful, at midnight to receive you. Then it was you who wounded Aravis. It was I. But what for? Child, said the voice. I'm telling you your story, not hers. C.S. Lewis, The Boy and His Horse. Scoot that out of the way so you can get a little bit more light in here. Okay. Our life is a story, or rather long and complicated story that has unfolded over time. There are many scenes, large and small, and many firsts. Your first step, your first word, your first day of school. There was your first best friend, your first recital, your first date, your first love, your first kiss, your first heartbreak. If you stop and think of it, your heart has lived through quite a story thus far. And over the course of that story, your heart has learned many things. Some of what you learned is true. Much of it is not. Not when it comes to the core questions about your heart and the heart of God. Is your heart good? Does your heart really matter? And what has life taught you about that? Imagine for a moment that God is walking softly beside you, and you sense his presence, feel his warm breath, and he says, "Tell me your sorrows." What would you say in reply? And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another counselor to be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. John 14, 16 through 17. Come again? How would you feel if your spouse or friend said to you, "I think you need some counseling, and so I've arranged for it. You start tomorrow. It'll probably take years. I've got $5 that says you'd get more than a little defensive." The combination of your pride, "I don't need any therapy, thank you very much," and the fact that I'm becoming a profession, Freud and Prozac and all that, has kept most of us from realizing that, in fact, we do need counseling. All of us. Jesus sends us his Spirit as counselor. That ought to make it clear. In fact, we apparently need quite a lot of counsel. The Spirit isn't just stopping in to give you a tune-up, not even an annual checkup. He has come to stay. Remember, the purpose of this thing called the Christian life is that your hearts might be restored and set free. That's the deal. That's what Jesus came to do by his own announcement. Jesus wants life for us, life with a capital L, and that life comes to us through our hearts. But restoring and releasing the heart is no easy project. God doesn't just throw a switch and poof, it's done. He sends his counselor to walk with us instead. He tells us it's going to be a process. All sorts of damage has been done to your heart over the years. All sorts of terrible things taken in by sin, by those who should have known better, and by our enemy who seeks to kill, steal, and destroy the image bearers of God. I underlined that passage, by the way. I'll read it again. All sorts of damage has been done to your heart over the years. All sorts of terrible things taken in by sin, by those who should have known better, and by our enemy who seeks to steal and kill and destroy the image bearers of God. At best, hope deferred makes the heart sick. Proverbs 13. Certainly, there's been a bit of that in your life. Even in laughter, the heart may ache. Proverbs 14. Which is to say, things may look fine on the outside, but inside it's another story. We're told to trust in the Lord with all our hearts. Proverbs 3. But frankly, we find it hard to do. Does trust come easily for you? I would love to trust God wholeheartedly. Why is it almost second nature to worry about things? We're told to love another deeply, one another deeply from the heart, 1 Peter. But that's even more rare. Why is it so easy to get angry at or to resent or simply to grow indifferent towards the very people we once loved? The answers lie down in the heart. For it is with your heart that you believe, Paul says, Romans 10:10. And in Proverbs we read, the heart of a man is like deep water, but a man of understanding draws it out. Chapter 20, verse 5. Our deepest convictions, the ones that really shape our lives, they're down there somewhere in the depths of our hearts. You see, we don't really develop our core convictions so much as they develop within us when we're young. Down deep in the inmost parts, they form down in deep water, like the shifting of the continental plates. Certainly, we'd reject the more disabling beliefs if we could, but they form when we are vulnerable without our really knowing it, like a handprint in wet cement. And over time, the cement hardens, and there you have it. Think of it this way. Have you always known down deep inside, down to the tips of your toes, that your heart is good and that your heart matters to God? Me neither. No, what we've come to believe about those ultimate issues was handed to us early on, in the most cases by our families. Assaulted from our youth. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to the dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain in the field, and then when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? They hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, as you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I'm going to send you to them. See if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word to me. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him from the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that it was a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. Genesis 37. Joseph stands out. as we were all meant to stand out, each in his or her own way. Instead of celebrating his glory, his brothers want to destroy it. A common story. I'm sorry to say, the worst blows typically come from family. That's where we start our journey of the heart. Turn that down just a little bit. Hey, Vadik, that's you making all the noise. One sec. Okay. That's where we start the journey of the heart, and that's where we're most vulnerable. What we learn from our parents and siblings about our heart defines us the rest of our days. It becomes the script we live out, for good or for ill. Cinderella's father calls her a little stunted kitchen wench, which my late wife left behind, and her stepmother sees her as much too dirty. She cannot show herself. What do you suppose she learned about her heart from growing up in that home? The reason Cinderella's story has stayed with us for so many years is that her story is the story of so many little girls. Listen to my friend Abby. The assault started as a young girl. There was something about me that seemed to aggravate my father, something about me, something that seemed to annoy him and repel him as I grew older. I only seemed to become more frustrating to him. I would ask him a question about how he was doing, and he would watch and I would watch as the look of annoyance filled his eyes. And I began to suspect that there was something deeply wrong with me, something that made me unlovable, undesirable, something that was too much and yet not enough, all at once. I tried endlessly to edit my personality, trying to figure out the right way to be and the right thing to say in every context, in every relationship. And I lived mostly in fear that I was going to blow it, and that in any moment the person I loved was going to turn on me, filled with contempt and disdain. A little girl longs to know that her daddy delights in her and that she is daddy's girl. What do scenes like this teach a young heart? Abby concluded that there was something wrong with her. Most of us believe that deep down inside. She learned her heart must be bad. Certainly it's not worth fighting for. And God, well, her heart mustn't really matter to him either. After all, he let it happen, and he didn't intervene. Even after receiving Jesus into my heart, this suspicion of something dark and wrong haunted me. I began to find myself especially anxious around animals and children, certain that in their piercing intuition, they would sense this darkness in me and my vain attempts to cover it up, and I would be exposed. One time, while on horseback riding, my horse knocked me against the limb of a tree. The limb ripped me out of the saddle, and I tumbled down onto the ground, my eyes filled with hot tears and my heart with waves of self-contempt. The voice within me said, "See, there really is something dark about you. The horse senses it, and he just wanted to get you off of him, whatever it took." There is David, whose heart of glory rises like the sun, full of faith and courage when he sees that no one will take on Goliath. Though he's only a youth, untrained for war, he is outraged that an uncircumcised Philistine has dared to taunt the armies of the living God. He announces, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." 1 Samuel 17. David's oldest brother was among the soldiers of Israel who should have had the heart to face Goliath, but rehearsed his excuses instead. His cowardice is exposed by David's bravery. After he lashes out, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the desert? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." 1 Samuel 17. Family. The worst blows tend to come from those who know us well and should have loved us. In the German myth, Siegfried was a great warrior. He slew the terrible dragon. He was fearless in battle. Siegfried was invincible, except for a small place on his back between his shoulders. There, he could be wounded. An uncle discovered Siegfried's weak spot and murdered him, stabbed him in the back by family. Small wonder this tale is endured through time. Misunderstood. Even Jesus endured this sort of assault, not the open accusation that had a wicked heart, but a more subtle kind. The seemingly innocent arrows that come through misunderstanding. In John 7, after this, Jesus went around in Galilee, purposefully staying away from Judea because the Jews there were waiting to take his life. And when the Jewish Feast of Tabernacles was near, Jesus' brothers said to him, "You ought to leave here and go to Judea so that your disciples may see the miracles you do. No one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. Since you're doing these things, show yourself to the world." For even his own brothers didn't believe in him. I think we can relate to that. Did your family believe in you? Some did, but far too many more believe in the person they wanted you to be. Did they even notice your heart at all? Have they been thrilled in your choices, or has their disappointment made it clear that you just aren't what you're supposed to be? At another point in his ministry, Jesus' family showed up to collect him. "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to see you." Luke chapter 8. They think he's lost it, and they've come to bring him home. Poor man. Misunderstanding is damaging, more insidious because we don't identify it as an attack on the heart. How subtly it comes, sowing doubt and discouragement where there should have been validation and support. There must be something wrong with us. I'm not big on computer games personally, but my eldest son, Sam, is an absolute crackerjack at them. It means he's good. It's a point of tension in our relationship. I don't think he ought to spend so much time there, and he thinks he's not given enough. Though I try to hide my distaste because I know how much he loves playing Off-Road Fury and Delta Force. It's pretty obvious when I never play with him. Just yesterday, Sam said to me, "You and Mom don't like computer games, so I feel like you don't like me." Ouch. I missed a part of his glory, shamed a part of his heart. How many an artist has been crushed in a family that prefers a rational approach to life? How many an engineer dismissed by a family of musicians? How many of us are lost in life simply because no one in our early world saw her glory, and affirmed it? How long, O men, will you turn my glory into shame? Psalm 4:2. These blows aren't random or incidental. They strike directly at some part of the heart, turn the very thing God created to be a source of celebration into a source of shame. And so you can at least begin to discover your glory by looking more closely at what you're ashamed for. Look at what's been assaulted, used, abused, as Bernard of Clairvaux declared. Through the heart's wound, I see its secret. Let me put it this way. What has life taught you about your God-given glory? What have you believed about your heart over the years? That it's not worth anyone's time, said a woman. Her parents were too busy to really want to know her. That's a weak, confided. It's weak, confided a friend. He suffered several emasculating blows as a boy, and his father simply shamed him for it. That I shouldn't trust it to anyone, that it's selfish and self-centered, that it's bad. And you, what have you believed? Those accusations you heard growing up, those core convictions that you formed about your heart will remain down there until someone comes to dislodge them, run them out of Dodge. That's a cowboy term, to run them out of town. I'll stop there for today, and we'll pick up tomorrow, the next day, with the next section called The Wonderful Counselor. And that's the answer to this first part of chapter 7. So hope you enjoyed that, and we'll talk to you soon. And hope you guys have a great evening and a great day. So love you. See you soon. Bye.